Hello and welcome to the Next in Line podcast, where we are helping to prepare you for whatever is next in line. As always, I am your host, Chance Pitts, and I'd like to thank you for tuning into this episode. Guys and gals, welcome into another episode of the Next in Line podcast. You might remember we just did a solo recap of Brazos Bend 50. That was our most recent ultra marathon race just 2 weeks ago. However, I had the opportunity to meet with my good friend, Mr. Chris Barnes. Some of y'all might remember him from episode 88. If you haven't, go listen to it. He's got an awesome story, an awesome background, and it's a phenomenal story of how he started taking on ultra marathons as well. But me and Chris get together today on this podcast via Skype or Zoom, I guess is the newest platform, but via Zoom to talk about this recent race and kind of how things went for each of us and what it meant to Chris to stretch out and find new heights with a 50 miler after running two 50Ks. Being that we are on Zoom, you're going to notice the sound quality is just a little bit different than what you're used to, but we are vetting that out as a new platform type for being able to connect with some people from afar. So be ready for that going forward. Let me know what you think. Drop us a comment, a rating, a review. And with this opening up some new platforms, if you know someone who you think we should interview that might be far away or might not be somebody we can connect with in person, go ahead and let us know, guys. Shoot us a DM. That's at Next in Line Development on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. We're active on all three platforms. Also, guys, I would encourage you to share the show with somebody who can receive the same kind of value if you're able to take some value away from this podcast. And I know there's many great things that were mentioned in the conversation that are just phenomenal takeaways for racing, for life, and personal development as a whole. So without any further ado, guys, thank y'all for tuning in. Here's the episode with Mr. Chris Barnes. All right, we're in here with Mr. Chris Barnes. How you doing today, Chris?
Good, buddy. How's it going?
Good, man. Good. Just wanted to get a chance to sit down with you. I know we've talked a little bit about Brazos Bend 50, but wanted to dive into this thing and really give you a fair shake since apparently I didn't do so in the last podcast.
Yeah. I appreciate you bringing me back on and to tell the real story of what happened over there.
Do you
That's
want
the
to
big
roll
thing,
straight into that, or do you want to go ahead and tell everybody why things went down like that?
man. I think we can get there. Let's go ahead and start with whatever questions you have, but I think we can end up there. Well, the truth will come out today. Don't worry, the truth will come out.
Fair enough. No, I agree.
Yeah,
Man, first and foremost, training plan. Getting ready for a 50 is something you have not done before. So,
yeah.
what was the training plan like for you? Did it go to plan? Was there any hiccups? Was it different than a 50K?
Man, I think training plan, honestly, a little unorthodox from what most people probably do for these races. My general day is run in the morning and lift in the afternoon. I usually throw in a CrossFit workout probably about 3 times a week. Um, I'm not going to say it's the right way, but in my mind, if you do hard things, then hard things don't become so hard. Uh, so realistically, I mean, I had a couple of long days in there. We had some 20-mile Saturdays. We had some 10, 15 milers working on speed, but mostly just, speed isn't really a factor in these races. It's more so moving well and moving efficiently, right? It's controlling your aid station stops. It's staying moving on your feet, even whenever, just like grabbing some chips and staying on the move. It's that little bit of edge that you get ahead of somebody, whenever you do these races. Uh, as far as plan, man, it kind of kind of blew up on me about mile 20. Me and you took off pretty hot. Obviously, I didn't have a headlight, so we took off in the dark. I figured there'd be enough people out there running with some illumination, so we could stick close by. And plus, it gave us a time to chat. Honestly, keep things calm and just talk about what was going to happen that day. Um, Man, we took off a little spicy, but really not too bad. Nothing we weren't unfamiliar with, myself included. Uh, but it was humid, man. You said it earlier, in your podcast last week. I mean, it was a muggy run, no doubt. Um, Man, we made that first 5K loop pretty sweaty. I mean, honestly, and already started drinking on water, which I normally wait to probably, mistakenly, I probably wait close to an hour before I really start taking anything down, just because it's let me kind of accumulate. But knowing we needed to get ahead of this, and honestly, you saying, "Hey, let's get ahead of this," um, started drinking early, started drinking electrolytes quick. Man, but I we made the first loop, first half loop. We started out toward the 40-acre lake and got out there, and man, heart rate just kind of stayed consistent. I was elevated. I was probably 150s most of the run early on, and I typically run somewhere around the 135 to 138 range pretty comfortably in an 830 pace. I
Yes,
mean,
sir.
pretty low heart rate. Yeah. Um, man, it wasn't long before we stopped at the first aid station. I think you grabbed a banana, and I took a little bathroom break. We hit back on the trail, picked back up where we left off, probably in the 840s, I think is where we were. Um, moving well, but man, heart rate still stayed up. I tried all the breathing practices as far as, you know, short breaths in, long breaths out, give yourself, try not to give yourself so much room to expand your diaphragm to where your heart can expand there, or therefore it keeps the beats lower. Because I have found in times that you can breathe out of a higher heart rate. You can get yourself out of it. It's
Absolutely.
kind of similar. It's kind of similar to like what a woman goes through, I believe, in like Le Mans. They teach them that breathing to keep their heart rate down to keep them calm, which I'm sure you'll go through soon enough.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah. So, man, we got cruising out there. We took the long loop after a little bit of confusion from some other runners. You and I made that big long loop out there, a couple miles of it. Came back around to that next aid station before the 3 mile, or I guess 6 mile, 3 mile out, 3 mile back. Um, man, that's where I had to start peeling off. I think we were close to mile 20, and I told you, man, I gotta slow off. Keep going. I'm gonna peel back. You probably got, I would say you probably got about a half a mile, maybe a little further ahead of me. I kept you within range as far as I could, just with a run walk combo. But once you get out there in these runs, I mean, anybody who's done them that's listening out there, and even if you haven't, just a word of the wise, once your heart rate spikes, you have a choice to make. You can either push through it and burn out, or you can back off and try to let it get under control and then try to pick back up. I obviously chose the latter of that. I wanted to finish the race. I wanted to finish the race strong. So I had to kind of start working in a walk combo. But, my walk may not be common of most people's. I think my walk pace is about a 14 and a half minute pace. So, it's,
Absolutely.
and it wasn't so much of I need to walk far. It was like I need to walk enough to get this heart rate back down to the 140s, or somewhere that I understand that is manageable, and then keep going. But looking back, man, I think honestly it was just heat rejection. I mean, truthfully, I mean, I probably started drinking too late. Even if 30 minutes was too late, 30 minutes was too late. I was behind on it quick. To no fault of my own. I mean, uh, to no fault but my own. Man, it went okay. The run went okay. I'm satisfied with where I ended up, but I'm not overly pleased. I mean, it's not what I wanted. I mean, yeah, I wanted to beat you, but I wanted to beat myself some more. I mean, I really wanted a top 10 out of that run. I think if I got to my plan was realistically to make it 30 miles without having any kind of flare up. 30 miles on a good steady pace, a good 9 minute average at worst, and then we would work into the walk run. I didn't think that 50 miles was on my feet, the whole time, like you did. But I think 50 miles, I think 30 miles was in my wheelhouse at a pretty steady pace to buy me some time on the front side, and then I could just about outwork most people on the back.
Yeah, no, I
So
agree with you. And commenting on your walk, like you said, your walk pace is very different than most people's. You walk very fast at a brisk pace. And just an illustration of that is I ended up walking 14 total minutes of that race. How many minutes did you walk?
I
Or how
walked for
many?
about 3 hours.
Three
Yeah,
hours, and you only finished about what, an hour behind me,
yeah.
which
I think our paces were off. I think I was about a minute 30 pace difference.
exactly. So
So
that, I mean, that just, to me, that illustrates how brisk of a walk and like the intentional steps you take with your walk and your
yeah.
time. I mean, it's not messing around at all. Um,
Yeah, and I think that a lot of it is I make a point to do that. I make a point to be intentional throughout the day too. And it's anybody listening out there is that you know you I average 15 to 20,000 steps a day, and that's on purpose. Like I make a point to get up and get moving. So it's be intentional when you're going somewhere. Park away and walk in. I mean, don't choose the closer. It really makes a difference. And once you get walking and you walk faster, it prepares you for that. Whenever you can't run. Uh, so after some time, and the heart rate got low, and I kind of got my levels right. Man, once it got hot, I mean, out there in the afternoon, once it got pretty toasty, and there were some spots in there in the road where it was open. Um, man, probably about like mile 40, 43. I mean, it the heart was good, but the legs were shot. I mean, I was toast. Um, I could feel just I was basically in that rhythm, where you get whenever when if you step out of line, you're going to cramp somewhere.
Yeah.
It's like your body is going to disagree with that movement. So I was pretty much on a track at that point. Uh, and then I adopted just a thought. I would run in the shade, or I would run in the sun and I would walk in the shade. Because again, you want that cooler time to give you more time. I don't want to run. I don't want to walk through the heat where it's worse. I want to get out of that. Um,
Absolutely.
Man, I try to stay moving. There would be some people that run past me. I would shuffle along with them for a little while, as long as I could, before I needed another drink of water. I think another flub that I had is, for the last uh, two races, I carried two 10-ounce bottles, in a fanny pack, honestly. And it's like, my thought was, well, as fast as I run, I'll be done before I need any more water. Well, that wasn't the case in this one, and I found myself pretty thirsty pretty quick.
Absolutely.
Um, and it just came down to being uncomfortable in the vest that I have. And it turns out they actually make other vests, and I've ordered another one, so we'll have that coming in for the next run.
There you
And it's, yeah, who knew? I mean, it only took me 80 miles to figure that out, that 20 ounces of water isn't enough at a time.
go.
Um, it's, man, I think as far as mentally prepared, I was ready for this. As far as mileage prepared, I was ready for this. And I think my adaptation to the to the issues that I had was probably as good as it could have been. And with the finish that I got, I ended up 16th out of overall, which, again, man, I'm happy with it, but I'm not satisfied. I need more. I
Yeah.
expected more out of myself, and I wasn't just torn down, like, like most races, like where, you've been, and I've been before, and it's something that you kind of look for in these runs. I mean, it's it's what does it. That's what you work for. You work your tail off to get out there and win these things. And yeah, I didn't win, and I mean, I probably wouldn't win, but I'm also not your stereotypical runner. I mean, I'm not the shining eye of what runners look like. So it's just,
Elaborate on that a little bit. What are your stats over there?
man, I guess 6'2", probably close to 230 pounds. And I mean, it's not the prettiest form you've ever seen either. I mean, I was asked one point, running on a treadmill, by a guy, if I'd ever been in an accident, and I said, no, why? And he said, no reason. I said, do I step funny? And he said, yeah. He goes, your hips are really tight. I'm like, yeah, well, like, comes with lack of mobility. I've been joking now for a while that I'm so immobile that I don't think I could roll an ankle. And so I'm uh, I'm pretty sure that that's not true. I've rolled an ankle plenty on those trail runs. So,
Yeah, absolutely.
um, but yeah, man, overall good race, man. You had an outstanding performance, man. Kyle had a badass performance, man. I think that Kyle
Absolutely.
Rogers did fantastic for his first one, and Michael, obviously Michael Ruiz, man, he got out there, and every time I'd pass him, he'd say, man, I just don't want you guys to catch me. I said, well, that's our goal. And like, I just kept running, just trying to get back around to him, and if that motivated those guys to keep pushing, then so be it. I mean, I'm just as happy to chase them down as I am to motivate them to keep running faster, to run harder than us.
That was one of
Um,
the coolest things to me about the race is that everybody just kept pumping each other up as they went by. Man, it was like a little shot of adrenaline whenever I'd pass those guys.
Absolutely,
And
man.
you're
Give you the
joking with
chills.
me. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
man. Um, did you want to dive in a little bit more and talk about that first loop, something that you did for me that helped me out on my running that was a factor I didn't mention before?
Yeah, for everybody out there listening in podcast land, man. So Chance may have bested me on this one. I'll give it to him, but not without some assistance from me. We
Yes,
were running.
sir.
Obviously, he had the headlight, so he was carrying the extra weight, of the cargo. However, sun starts to come up, the light needs to go away. Well, Chance just couldn't reach around and put it in his pack. So who was there for him? None other than me. And he may deny it, he may admit it, but man, I think that gave him the edge, because it really threw my step off. I was counting my steps up into that point, and then I lost count, and so that really threw my head off. And so, man, it's without a doubt you bested me, and I think that added at least an hour to my time.
I I think
And
it would have been a lot closer. Probably a foot race to the end.
I think, yeah, somebody would have been dragging somebody, So yeah,
Exactly.
man, you had an absolutely awesome run in. I mean, I was nowhere near mad, was never the word for it. I was never going to be mad if you beat me, and when you beat me, we talked a lot of noise at dinner the night before, but
We did.
all in good faith, man. And if anything, it motivated me to keep pushing to make sure to keep it close. And I mean,
Yes,
that
sir.
was if anything, that's what I was after, is to make sure that you knew I was within reach. There was striking distance there for a while. Every time you come back on one loop, I would figure, okay, well, you're 2.5 miles ahead of me. It's like, all right, well, all I need is one slip. All I need is you to just sit down at an aid station for a minute, like,
Going into
but
the
no, man.
going into the last loop, I was only 40 minutes ahead of you.
Yeah,
So you
I
kept it
know.
close for a really long time.
Because when I came in on that last loop, I'd asked Lane there, who was, running crew. I asked Lane, I said, how far is he? And as I'm choking down a banana and repacking my fanny pack, sorry.
Yeah.
Um, as I'm putting everything in there, he said, man, he's about 40 minutes. I said, all right. I said, well, my feet are really wet. He said, do you have an extra pair of shoes? I said, yeah. He goes, you want me to go get them? I said, nah, it's only 15 miles. Let me go see if I can go catch him. And I ran off. And yeah, I
That's
mean, I
awesome.
never caught you. I saw you again, but I didn't catch you.
Yeah.
So
Man,
yeah,
well, you mentioned it a little bit with the hydration, but hydration and nutrition wise, this is a little bit of a different beast. How did it go for you out there? I know the heart rate being elevated, you have to have a little bit more intake, both hydration and calorie wise.
man. So nutritional wise, I obviously took the gels out there. I took stingers and I took chia seed gels just because they usually sit pretty well on my stomach. I don't usually have any flare ups. Um, honestly, I probably wasn't as prepared as I could have been on the nutrition side. Again, I kind of took it on like a 50K, but the last 50K I did took me 6.5 hours. So I was intending to be out there for about an hour longer than that. I was planning around the 7 hour mark, which you and I talked about. Sub 8 was the goal. And then when it gets long, well, now the plan's backfiring. Now you're not as prepared as you thought you were. Well, I can be honest with you, man. I think, I mean, you talked about it in the last one. A lot of gels out there are trash, and honestly, a gel kind of is trash. I mean, I think a gel is a good bump, but you need to figure out something that's a little more sustainable, something a little more hardy to choke down. And actually, I was talking to somebody, and I mean, I think you and I can dive in this a little further, and I may try it on the next run. Um, Boiling red potatoes. Red potatoes give you potassium. They have the salt in them, and it keeps you moving. And I mean, I know in some of the books you read also, the the bean rolls, the bean wraps,
Yep, absolutely.
beans and tortillas. Yeah, so I mean, I think that there's some stuff out there to play with to get away from the gels. I think the gels would be a good shot if you want something sweet and you want to get moving. But man, I don't think that that's a sustainable source for a 50-mile run, honestly.
No,
I mean,
I
it's junk food is what it is, right? I mean, it's
yeah, it's easy access carbs for your body to get a little bump. Marathon length, 50K length, I think they're kind of favorable, easy.
sure.
Keep moving fast, whatever. You can carry a lot of them. But that's kind of where I was at with this run. I did about 2 gels a loop, maybe if that. And the last
Yeah.
was the heaviest on them. But I kind of took the potato approach with the Pringles in a weird way.
Yeah.
And it sounds dumb and probably a little gross, but I've seen a video where a guy goofed around and he took a deal of Pringles, basically turned it into mashed potatoes using like milk and stuff like that. Yeah, terrible, sounds gross. But with that
Yeah.
in my
Yeah.
mind, I was like, mashed potatoes are a really good source for a lot of runners out there. So I was like, yeah, close, maybe. That was my strategy with the salt and the chips and the carbs there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
banana
I
smoothie.
think that, yeah, I'd choke down a banana every time, just to keep the potassium, and really cramps weren't bad this round. I
Yeah,
have had issues with my quads cramping up. I know Kyle had some issues with his quads cramping up, but he persevered, pushed through that. Cramps weren't really an issue, man. Just that heart rate spike, man, early on got me, and it just, I didn't let it get in my head, but easily, anybody out there that runs these things, it could easily get a hold of your mind and, really deflate you. But it was disappointing, but it wasn't the end of the race. I mean, I was like, man, there's still a lot of road to recover. We gotta move,
yeah,
and once you get out there too, if you're out there running it like you and I are trying to run it, to the extent of we're trying to beat some folks, it's one of those things that you start to lose sight of who's running which race, especially once everybody gets out there. I didn't know who was who. It's like, man, you see somebody just flying by you and you're like, I assume I'm racing that guy. I don't know. And then you finish, and then you find your place. It's like honestly, whenever I finished, and once scores had settled, I was like, man, that's pretty good, because I thought there was more people ahead than that ahead of me. But some of the people that were running so well were 50K guys. They were just running really well, and I mean they were going so fast that I was seeing them all the time. So it was like, well, that's great. But and that gets in your head too. That's a psychological side of these races too. If you see somebody a lot, you think, well, that guy's beating me. And it's right, wrong, or indifferent. That's still something that you face out there, because I mean, there's a lot of time in your head out there. And I know you said you brought headphones, which that's a sneaky trick. Um, all I had to talk to was myself, and I think the guy that got very dead last place, it was like his 126th like run ever or something. And I was like, man, congratulations, I'm going to leave you here, and took off. So, but man, just all shapes and sizes you see. I mean, it's no different than neighborhood 5Ks and stuff like that. And there's a lot of people out there gutting it out, and there's some people out there that are really trying to do something with it too.
For
And
sure.
I ended up seeing a guy. I think I told you, ended up seeing a guy I went to college with. I mean, used to work with in college, was out there. I just randomly saw him, and it's like, man, I had no idea he did these kinds of things. But even that little bit, I hadn't seen the guy in probably 5+ years, and that just gave me such a burst of energy. Like, holy cow, man, to see somebody out here you had no idea would be running these races. And it just, man, it motivates you to just pick up the pace. It's like, man, the feet started picking up, and we started running. I started stopping at those well sites that had potable water, and man, I was sure glad it was potable and not non-potable, because I would have been in
Yeah,
a bind, because I was filling my bottles on them things pretty steadily.
man. No, I get that. And you're right. I mean, I love the environment of the races. I mean, I watched a video somebody had sent me of our start, and they just videoed the whole thing. They didn't zoom in on us or anything. They just videoed everyone, the entire field running past. And I was like, man, that even now I get fired up, just want to freaking toe the line again, get back out there and do
Well,
something.
you watch the, I mean, and hell, people probably think this is crazy, but for the last, like, all week last week, I watched on YouTube on my TV, races, running races, people recording running ultras, across, Utah, or Arizona, watching the Cocodona, or watching Leadville for the 500th time. Man, when they take off at Leadville, all those people running, it looks like cars driving down the interstate. I mean, it is just so, it's headlights as far as you can see, not somewhere I'd probably forget a headlight. Um, but it's, man, it's amazing how many people are into this sport. And I mean, and I think there's a lot more tricks that you and I can learn to help us get there. And I think it's kind of wading in the water to figure out what works, a little better. Again, like I say, I just heard the potato thing from a woman that did a couple Ironman. Actually, Kyle knows her. She was talking about, yeah, boiled red potato. She said, I did it for an Ironman, and she was, people looked at me like I was crazy, but it gives you everything you need to keep pumping. And I mean, honestly, potatoes are starch, and starch is energy. So, um, man, it's worth a shot, because I love potatoes. So if I got to run with them in my pockets, we'll do that.
Man, that's what a lot of people do. They do mashed potatoes in a bag and basically just like one of those icing deals, just squeeze it in.
Sounds terrible.
Yeah, it sounds terrible, but hey, if it works,
Yeah,
I'm probably gonna look at that for the longer races I got coming up.
yeah, for sure.
And we're just over a week out. How are you feeling? How was recovery from this race? I know you said kind of like we both talked about, weren't completely obliterated like we expected to be from this thing, but where are you at right now with that?
Man, I was hurting pretty good. I was down till I actually ended up started getting sick, which isn't uncommon, right? I mean, you've been moving for 9 hours and really putting your body to the test. So any little germ may get you. I think a lot of it was just allergies, and then it really hit me pretty hard. Um, I was down off of running. I could have ran by Wednesday, I think, but I held off just because of the illness. But I got back out there and started walking the next day. Put on 20-pound vest and just hoofed it through the neighborhood. Because I mean, the best way to get that lactic acid out of you is just start moving. I mean, if you lay around and let it consume you and take over you, it will do just that. It'll take just that long to get out of it. Um, Man, I ran again Saturday for the first time. Did 10K at like I don't know, just around maybe a light 9-minute pace,
Yeah.
just to get out. Felt good. I probably had 10 in me, but I just held off. Um, so I would say right at a week before I ran again. Like I said, I ran a 10K at a decent pace. I ran again uh, Monday. While you're listening to this, it'd be Monday morning. I ran about 8 miles before work. at about a 9 minute pace. I mean, nothing blazing the trail, but man, a good steady run, just making sure more of like a systems check. Let's just make sure everything feels okay, make sure your feet feel okay. I mean, I was pretty tender on my feet on that one. Um, just on the edges of my feet for some reason. And I heard a lot of people talking about that, the outsides of their feet were hurting from this run. And I'm not sure what that was. It really wasn't much of a lean in that course, but whatever be the case.
Sure.
Uh, Man, overall, like I say, body held up. I mean, legs hurt, but I did Normatec compression sleeves every day. I'd probably for an hour and a half to 2 hours. I did the hip attachments a couple of times just to make sure everything was loose there, and some light mobility stretching just to as much as I could tolerate at first. Like get in the shower, let the hot water hit you, and then pull your leg back.
Yeah.
But it wasn't as bad. I mean, it wasn't as bad as my first 50K, and it wasn't great, but it wasn't enough to deter me. It wasn't enough to say never again. So
Yeah. No, and I totally understand exactly where you're at. And I think there's also some people in that group that you listed out that decided they were never going to run again and then quickly turned it around because they on the other side reflecting on it a little bit and getting away from that race kind of see
man, it
more.
it doesn't take long. Like Michael's doing, I think he's doing the 100 miler. I mean, your cousin, of course, he'd already set that. So I mean, I guess he was ahead of that. Yeah, Kyle said, he goes, man, I'll leave the running to you guys. And a day ago he told me, man, he goes, I think I want to do 100K. So, he's ready to step up. I mean, a lot of people will say, that the 50K is the introduction into ultra running, which obviously it is because that's the next distance up from a marathon. But 50 miler will really, really push you to the test. And I think that's 100% true. I did 250Ks, but because I wanted to prove that I could best the one that I had done first. I knew I was better than that. Um, I don't know that 50 mile I'll do again. I may do again, but it won't be the next run by any means.
Sure.
I don't think I need to step it out like that this time. I bigger fish to fry. Let's get after it.
Well, no, that sounds good. And I mean, segueing right into that, I was gonna ask you if there's what the biggest difference between the 50K and 50 miler was, but I think we kind of covered that between having to be a little bit more intentional for a little bit longer, time on your feet. The training plan looked roughly the same, a little bit more length in it probably, and then between hydration and nutrition, just making sure you're staying intentional with all of those things.
Yeah.
So, man, kind of jumping over that and getting to think something a little bit more interesting. What do you have on the docket coming up next for running wise?
And well, just a quick plug. I didn't mention the last time you and I talked. At the end of this month, I'm doing a 150-mile MS 150 bike ride.
That's
Ride
awesome.
from Houston, to College Station. Actually, I think it's Houston to LaGrange to College Station is
Yeah,
where the trail goes to. It's to raise awareness and funds for multiple sclerosis. So, uh, man, a buddy of mine, friend I grew up with, uh, he's done it a couple of years in a row, and he asked me if I would do it with him after I'd conned him into doing the Habanero team run with us. So I said, yeah, and here we are. So, got that coming up at the end of this month. And then, man, I think, after you and I had talked a little bit, I think that I'm going to go ahead and come out there and pace you whenever you do the Katy. I'm going to, you let me know what leg and I'll be there. Um,
Appreciate
I'd
that.
be honored to, yeah, I'd be honored to be out there and drag you along. It's the least I could do, and I'll carry the headlight this time.
That's right. In case
Uh,
the headlamp stored.
yeah, exactly. Man, I'm not 100% committed, but I'm about 99.9% committed. I'll probably do the 100 mile out at Brazos Bend this year. So everybody listening, be on your best behavior because it's coming.
Very
Um,
good.
yeah, man, everybody step up your training plan because I want to, same as before. I want to put in enough time to make sure that I'm prepared for that. I know it's 100 miles. I know it's a fast course, but a lot cooler weather is going to make a difference for that heart rate. And it's going to be not coming out too hot and making sure I can sustain whatever it is I'm doing. Uh, and nutrition is going to be huge, but I got some time for that, man. We've got the Habanero coming up again,
Oh yeah,
in
campaign.
August. Yeah, we're gonna do the team run on that one. Man, if something comes up in between, I may jump it. I don't really have any in betweeners coming up. Right now, actually, personally, I'm about to go into a cut. You know, cut diet, try to drop a little more, try to trim a little more weight off. I would like to probably be closer to the 200 mark. Um, just because I'm carrying around some excess weight that isn't all muscle, but I think 200 may be good, maybe a little more. I've actually employed a coach to help me with this one, so I put a lot of emphasis into getting into the shape that I'm in, but I'm really gonna dial it in and try to trim this up and make sure that I can be in my best shape. Um, so I've got that starting out probably within the next week. Uh, Other than that, man, I know you and I have talked about it, but December comes up quick, and I think we're gonna put in for the Leadville lottery, man. Let's climb 12,000 feet up Hope Pass and do the lifetime run. I think
Man,
that's a bucket list, man.
yeah, I think it's absolutely a bucket list. I will be putting in, I know we both are, for Leadville. If one of us gets it, the other's absolutely going to go pace. Shoot,
Yeah,
hopefully we both get it. That'd be pretty freaking
yeah.
awesome.
We'll have to lose a pacer, but yeah, absolutely. I think
Yeah.
that'd be the most exciting. And you and I were talking also. We didn't do it this year, but probably too hot now. But running the rim to rim to rim at the Grand Canyon, that's just over 30 miles, I believe. Um, it's I think there's a lot to see on foot. There's a lot to see in the world, but there's a lot more to see on foot, and it's a pretty interesting way. So anybody who's listening and thinking about getting out there, man, if you can do it on your feet, it's makes you appreciate it a little more. It's a little different than looking through the window, it's or seeing it from an airplane or through a website. Man, it's time on your toes. Is what I like to say. Tot, time on toes. Man, and I got some terrible looking toes, but man, they sure do get me places.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more, man. I'm looking forward to that rim to rim to rim at the Grand Canyon. Don't know when we're gonna do it. Probably next year. It's either like a spring or a fall kind of
Yeah,
thing.
yeah,
So we'll find when everything's open, because there's obviously some pit stops and some aid stations that you use in the form of shops and stores in that place that use to your benefit. Map it out logistically to make sense.
for sure. More than a fanny pack.
Yeah, no kidding. Might
Yeah,
need the
yeah,
running best for that one.
yeah. No kidding.
It's gonna be cool to have you out there at Katy. I think at Brazos Bend you can have pacers for two of the laps that you have, the last two laps.
Okay,
Not sure what that equates to. I think it's a total of 30 or 40 miles or something like that you can have pacers for, somewhere in between there. Um,
gotcha.
so that'll be cool. But you see your crew pretty regularly up top with the loops.
Yeah,
That'll be
yeah,
cool.
and I think it'll be good having people out there because, like I say, Michael will be out there, so I'm sure he'll be out there. And Cal's talking about doing the 100K out there because this year, I guess for the centennial anniversary of state parks, they're not doing the 50 miler in December, and they're doing 100K. So
Nice.
I actually read that, so I think he's just about talked into it. I think he's actually going to start running tomorrow, is what he was telling me earlier. So he's just a little over a week from running again as well. Uh, Man, like I say, overall great effort. And I know you mentioned it, in the post race podcast, but Lane Diven and everybody who was out there, man, I can't thank those guys enough. I mean, it was a little shot of motivation to swing in there and stop and shoot the breeze for a minute, and everybody laugh at some stupid thing you would say, and then you trot off like, well, I'm the idiot. Like, uh, the alligators. I don't know how many you saw, but I saw plenty of them. You'd hear somebody yell and then you see them come out of the grass, and it was like, man, like, by one of those laps, I was pretty much hoping one of them would come out and grab me and just take me back off into the water. It's like, at least I don't know if that's a DNF or that's like I think everybody would feel worse for you if you didn't finish because of that. The guy, you lost a leg.
Yeah, I think you get a pass.
Um, yeah, I think it's automatic first place. So, maybe that's my strategy going to the next one.
Hey, who
Yeah.
knows? Might be effective.
Yeah.
Oh,
No
oh
kidding.
no, alligators dormant in the cold weather out in the.
I would think they're not as active. I mean, I we're gonna find out. I'll be going so fast it won't matter.
There
So
you go. Blow them right off the course.
they'll be like, we better stay out. There's a car driving out here. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll have a good group out there. Shoot, Michael's running that race. You talked about Kyle. My dad is
Yeah.
actually pretty heavily thinking about running the 100 miler too out there. So there ought to be a
Good.
pretty dang good group, man.
Misery loves company. Misery loves company, man.
Absolutely, it does. It definitely worked in favor of the misery we had going on here at the 50. So
Yeah. Yeah.
man, but no, that's
Great, man.
exciting, man. I'm amped up for you to go and find more. I'm stoked about Habanero. It sounds like we're gonna have three teams. There's two or three teams out there.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you're out there and you want to run some relays and thinking about really pushing yourself in August, Habanero, holler at us, shoot us a
Yep.
DM. Um,
Yeah.
we can throw you on a team. But man, I'm super proud of what you went out there and did. All jokes aside, I know we talked a lot of crap, but to go out there in the unknown waters of what that race was for you, man, 20 extra miles almost on top of anything you ever done, and
Yeah.
to go out there and stay on top of your hydration, nutrition, not blow up, but also to figure out what you needed to do. Uh, honestly, to I say this very loosely, set a little bit of pride aside maybe and realize, hey, I need to get the heart rate figured out because
Yeah.
I was there last year when I ran the 100K and did the same exact thing you did with kind of
Yeah.
pacing and everything and walk strategy. So I'm super proud of you. I'm excited to see where it goes, dude.
Yeah, man, great job on your end too, man. Great run. I mean, it
Thank
stung, but it was like, man, but I wanted to take it, but when you get closer to the end of that ain't what it's about at that point. I mean, you lose sight of like, okay, I want to just beat him. It's like, man, I want you to hammer down and I want you to win. It's like, so one of us can take this. I want one of us to get in there. And it's just like, and I think that's the best part about this. You can joke and it motivates us to talk that smack to each other and get us into there. But man, once they fire the gun and you take off, man, it's hey, how do I push you to go further? Or how do you push me to go further? How do we keep going? And every time I would see you, I would be just barely shuffling my feet, but you'd be like, all right, there you are. Now come get me, and it was just like, yeah, all right, and it was just little pick me ups, every time you pass somebody or, and like you said, you found those things to say, hey, nice hat, nice vest, whatever. I wasn't to that point. It was just like, yeah, good job. Yeah, good job. Yeah, good job. It was just, and I think people were saying that to me thinking like, wow, why is this guy ahead of me? But man, I look like a cattle salt block, I mean, I had salt all over my shirt, man. It was just waves of that stuff. And, everybody out there was feeling it. I think you can tell from the times. I think the finish times, I mean, everybody out there had a pretty tough race with the heat and the humidity. I mean, it was thick early. It was a lot more humid than I thought it was going to be that early. I thought at least we would get, a little window of cooler air, but man, it was thick fast. I mean, couldn't find a dry spot on the shirt after, 7 miles.
Yeah,
So
going out for the last half of that first loop.
yeah. So, but still, a good run, a very well put on run. I actually shot an email to Cal and told him, man, thanks for the buckle. It truly means a lot that he put that kind of thought into it. Um, in the times, obviously they had a lot of times messed up, but it they got it right. They got it organized right, and they made it right, and they were very open to that. So ultimately, man, I mean, it's exciting to do these races. It's exciting to go out and do them. It's fulfilling. It is, my wife watches me waddle into the house and she's like, how was it? And I'm like, man, it was bad. But she's like, okay, well, when's the next one? And it's just like, I'm sure Lane does the same thing. And anybody out there who runs these things, they know it. Your mom probably does it to your dad. Like, why are you doing this to yourself? It's like, well, I could lay on the couch and eat fried food, and you wouldn't ask me that question. So it's like, at least I'm out there doing something, so,
Yeah,
uh,
man.
but man, great run, great competition between you and I. I look forward to doing another one in some capacity, whatever that may be.
Absolutely, man.
To
And
be continued.
we got about a minute before we shut it down. I think we throw a little challenge out there. I think we do some runs. We help each other get some distance, some experience. But I think what's next in line for the Chris Barnes and Chance Pitts competition series is probably going to be a backyard ultra. If you're
Yeah.
down for it, it's the
Oh yeah.
last man
Yeah.
standing.
I like to do one. I just would like to travel for one. Let's go see somewhere if we're gonna do one of those.
Yeah, man, let's do
I
it.
don't need to. I don't need to see Bandera, Texas. Nothing against Bandera, but I don't need to see that for
Well, stomping
a day and
grounds.
a half.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no,
Yeah.
we can go find some cool terrain, a good spot, and go do that race, man. But Chris, thank you so much for joining me on here, sharing everything that you've shared, and man, just being a continued inspiration for everybody that listens to the show every time you're on.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me, man. I'll see you on the trail.
All right, brother. Sounds like a plan.
I do. See you.
Guys, thank you so much for tuning into this awesome episode with Mr. Chris Barnes. I know there's a lot of value packed into there. There's some good stories, a little bit of joking around and teasing each other back and forth, but I'm really looking forward to seeing what both of us decide to take on in the future and how we plan next to go head to head in that backyard ultra, and just where this awesome journey we've been on these past few years decides to take us. Guys, if you extracted any value from that episode or it entertained you, please share the show with somebody that could receive that same kind of value or entertainment. That's the number one way for us to grow this podcast. Also, guys, make sure you follow us and keep up with us on social media. That's at Next in Line Development on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. And always be prepared for whatever is next in line.